on our beautiful campus on this gorgeous day as your students begin their journey at Washington University. I am Feng Sheng Hu, Dean of Arts and Sciences. I'm also a professor in the Department of Biology and the Department of Earth and Planetary Sciences. I myself am relatively new to WashU, having arrived just over 2 years ago. But like all of you, before I even set foot on campus, I knew Washington University was such a special place. In the past 2 years, I have had abundant opportunities to directly observe just how exceptional it is as a higher education institution. Today is such a special day. I know you're excited, and I'm truly excited too. For months now, my colleagues and I have been eagerly awaiting and preparing for the arrival of the class of 2026. And they are finally here. The WashU community is filled with amazing people and opportunities. And now with you and your students joining our community, it will become even better. We have a rich and informative presentation for you today, so I'm going to keep my remarks brief. I want to make 3 points. First is that WashU students are simply some of the best people in the world. I say this as someone who has been a member of multiple institutions across the United States and in fact across the world. Our students are of world-class academic caliber, and you know that, but they're also some of the most conscientious, caring, passionate people. Every student I have met at WashU is the kind of person who truly gives you hope for the future. Second, at WashU, we take good care of our students. I and all other university leaders do every single part of our jobs with their best interests in mind. Trust that I understand that you are filled with many mixed emotions right now. As a father who is sending his children off to college, for the first time this fall, I am experiencing them too. In fact, I may be feeling double the emotions since my wife and I have twins who are both first-year college students this year. We're moving on into the dorms. Thank you. We're moving on into the dorms in just a few days, and the other will move next month. So I can certainly appreciate your feeling intense pride, incredible excitement, and maybe even some significant amount of anxiety, especially if your student will be far from home. So I want to try to put your mind at ease. At WashU, we are always here for our students. Helping them thrive is front and center in our minds all the time. It is a central part of our mission. In arts and sciences, they will study the fundamentals, of course, but they will also have plenty of opportunities to explore new ideas and new areas. Your students' academic experience will be broad and expansive, and they will also gain deep knowledge in fields that intrigue them. We will prepare your students to build fulfilling and successful lives, not only in years ahead, but now here on our campus. And that brings me to my third point. Your students' future is incredibly bright. Our alumni go on to do amazing things. They are scholars, medical doctors, entrepreneurs, teachers, business leaders, public servants, you name it. There are even Nobel laureates and Pulitzer Prize winners who have garnered worldwide recognition. and their indispensable contributors who work tirelessly behind the scenes, making the world a better place. We look forward to your students joining their ranks one day. The years they will spend at WashU will inspire them, and they inspire us. And now I'm going to use a few slides to tell you a bit about the School of Arts and Sciences. I know you've mostly been thinking about your students' majors and maybe minors and their academic departments. But what is the School of Arts and Sciences? Simply put, we are WashU's home for the liberal arts. Let me go to my next slide. So this slide illustrates the centrality of arts and sciences to the institution. We teach literally every single student on campus, regardless of their major or minor. We have about 61% of all the undergraduate students at WashU, and roughly 60% of the professors, tenure track or teaching track professors on the Danforth campus. And we contribute as a school, we contribute disproportionately to the diversity and inclusion commitment of WashU. So we have 65% of the underrepresented minority students and about 65% of the faculty who are in the same group, URM faculty. And so on the lower left-hand side, we have some statistics. We have a total of 4,800 undergraduate students. So 3 out of 5 WashU undergraduates are arts and sciences students. We offer 70 major areas of study across 44 departments and programs. And my swipe card gives me access to more than 40 buildings, which basically means that most of the buildings that you see on campus, the gorgeous buildings, are homes to our people, our programs, and our departments. And so we just completed a new vision, shared vision that was developed by professors, staff, and students. And so here's the title of our new strategic plan, A Transformative Decade for Arts and Sciences, Convergence, Creativity, and Community. And so here's our vision statement. As we turn to the next 10 years, we envision a transformed school that will serve as a global model for a premier school of arts and sciences. And we will do that by leading innovative developments in a range of critical fields and disciplines, advancing foundational knowledge and convergent breakthroughs, creating solutions for pressing global challenges, and last but not least, educating a new generation of leaders to shape the future and change the world. And so now I'm going to show you a short video that hopefully captures the excitement and enthusiasm of our people, staff, faculty, and students.
Our campus sits near the confluence of 2 ancient rivers. Ecosystems merge and thrive in our midst. Our region has seen diverse cultures take root, fight for survival, and reach toward great. They draw us to engage with our city, with each other, and with community.
So your students, the class of 2026, are in for a wonderful 4 years. We are so delighted to have them here, and we are just thrilled to welcome you, their families and loved ones, to the WashU community. Thank you all so much for entrusting us with your students, and congratulations on this momentous occasion. With that, please allow me to introduce my colleague, Vice Dean Aaron McLaughlin, who oversees our liberal arts curriculum and the Undergraduate College of Arts and Sciences. Dr. McLaughlin is a renowned Holocaust scholar. She's also deeply committed to our students' education and the success of our students. She will be your students' greatest champion during their time here, and I know she's so excited to meet all of you. Please join me in welcoming Vice Dean Aaron McLaughlin.
Thank you, Dean Hu, and good morning. I'd like to welcome all of you, the families of arts and sciences entering students, to this academic orientation, where we'll talk about how we in the College of Arts and Sciences can partner with you to enhance your student success. As Dean Hu says, I'm Vice Dean McLaughlin. I lead the College of Undergraduate College of Arts and Sciences. I'm also a professor of German and Jewish studies, and I've been at WashU now for 21 years, which is kind of hard to believe. Thank you. So my absolute favorite time of year is the beginning of the fall semester, when all the excitement on campus is palpable. You're already feeling it. And this is like, we get emotional when this time of year comes around. We're all embarking on a new year with all the promise and anticipation that brings. The sense of an open vista of possibilities is particularly true for our newest students who have the whole WashU world open to them. I'm so excited to be here to greet them, and I'll be doing that tomorrow, to get to know them and to support them on their academic journey. I represent the college office, a dedicated team of advising and student academic affairs professionals, and several of them are here with me today, whose mission it is to support students and foster their success. We're here for you and for your students. I know that you, as parents and families, are also incredibly excited about this moment, although perhaps your feelings of anticipation are mixed with worries and concerns. I'm here to acknowledge your feelings, but also to give you information to reassure you and tips you can use to help your students navigate this first year. After all, this is a very big moment in your students' lives. They're about to embark on their 4-year academic journey, which is an intense, exciting period in a young person's life. It's a time of intellectual exploration, of awakening knowledge of oneself and the physical and social world one inhabits, and of personal transformation. In arts and sciences, we see this as an academic journey, a gradual process of development in which students come into their own and identify with their passions, interests, and career goals. Tomorrow, I'll talk to first-year students about the idea of the journey and ask them to mark the occasion by writing postcards to their future selves. Naturally, when one starts a completely new endeavor, there is bound to be some degree of anxiety. This is normal and to be expected, but I'd like to take you through the main kinds of anxiety that students and parents feel and give you some strategies for managing them. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. First, I'll talk about some common sources of anxiety for both students and parents in the transition to college, including choosing a major, overcommitment, grades. And then I'll talk about the productive role families can play in student success. And at the end, we'll leave some time for your questions. So first, I want to start with the anxieties. The first source of anxiety for both students and their families is choosing a major. Students often enter college with the idea that they must have already identified a single passion or academic objective, that one major or path of study that will define their future lives and solidify their entire worldview. This notion of a singular passion, that sole, clearly defined thing that has to play out in a particular way in order for the student to be eternally happy, it is a myth, right? First of all, it's an illusion, but it also puts a lot of pressure on students, and often it closes them off to the many possibilities around them. We in the College of Arts and Sciences see this in another way. We see their entrance into college as the beginning of a dynamic process, a journey that may have a definite destination, but also that contains spontaneous side trips and serendipitous moments of discovery. And that also, like all serious endeavors, can contain occasional setbacks and moments of doubt. For this reason, we want to stress right off the bat that this is just the beginning, and that students don't have to have it all figured out right now. In fact, nearly half of our undergraduate students enter WashU without knowing what they want to study. Many of those who don't know, comparing themselves with their new friends and roommates, might feel anxiety or embarrassment about this. But we actually encourage our students not to be too hasty in making decisions about their academic goals without trying out subjects and exploring disciplines that they had previously no knowledge of or experience with. Arts and Sciences has a multitude of disciplines and courses that were simply not even available to students in their high schools. And in fact, there is plenty of time and space built into our liberal arts and sciences curriculum for trying things out. Students don't actually need to declare a major until the second semester of their sophomore year. And even after that, they can still add some majors and minors. Further, our students will be required to engage with a true liberal arts and sciences curriculum. They'll be exposed to different ways of thinking, new perspectives, and academic areas and literacies and competencies that were previously unknown to them. Our arts and sciences IQ curriculum encourages them to explore, especially in their first year. And at the same time, this exploration can satisfy core requirements so that time and energy spent delving into new areas do not foreclose any possible paths. They are fully compatible with finishing on time and making the necessary preparations for particular careers and for graduate study. Moreover, students shouldn't stress out about their major anyway. As studies are increasingly showing, an applicant's major isn't the main qualification that employers focus on. Rather, they're seeking applicants with skills in communication, analysis, and critical thinking, all of which are outcomes of the liberal arts education. Of course, particular content expertise or courses will be important for some paths. But in those paths as well, such as the study of medicine, there is a great deal of focus on applicants who are well-rounded and who can think and communicate about complex topics. We have a strong structure in place to help students identify possible interests, articulate a study plan, and think about how their studies will connect to their post-college life. In any case, students won't screw things up by choosing the wrong major. This is supported by career outcomes of our graduates. If you're interested in the possible career paths of a particular major and the ways in which alums who graduated with that major have fared in the working world, I encourage you to review the career outcome data available on the Career Center website. You can filter by school and department to see reported outcomes and destinations for WashU students. So students shouldn't avoid choosing a major because they're worried about future career choices. We can help them make that work. In fact, we want to get students thinking about future career paths right away. We encourage them to engage early and often with the WashU Career Center and to explore possible careers through the Career Center exercises and workshops, as well as through our own advising within the College of Arts and Sciences. Even for those students who do have clear objectives, such as taking the pre-med path, even those can choose diverse majors in the humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences. They do not need to major in biology to get into med school. Successful pre-med students major in a variety of areas. This is exemplified in our own arts and sciences student body. Every year, we have about 350 WashU students apply to med school. Most of them are arts and sciences students. And we actually see no difference in admission rates between those who major in biology and those who major in other fields, such as anthropology, chemistry, Spanish, economics, classics, psychology, and history. And some of these disciplines, by the way, offer coursework in health adjacent areas. In fact, 25% of successful applicants have majors and minors outside the natural sciences. So there are many paths to med school. Whatever path or paths students take, they create a narrative for their med school applications that shows how their varied studies contribute to the breadth and depth of the liberal arts knowledge that is important for the practice of medicine. So the second source of anxiety for students and families is overcommitment. WashU students often feel the need to max out their schedule in terms of both academics and extracurricular activities. They easily subscribe to the culture of busy and believe that there's something wrong with them if they're not overcommitted at all times. Our students develop this mindset and form these habits when they prepare to apply for college. As all of you well know, many of them felt the need to do more in order to win the college admissions race. But now they're at WashU, and they don't need to prove that same quantity of engagement. In fact, there's no real recipe for winning college. But we frequently see that students believe that they have to prove themselves in all possible areas. And they add things to their schedules merely for the sake of adding them to their schedules. If they love the activities they're doing, this is great. But if they're doing this out of habit or because of external pressures, then that's a problem. Especially in the first semester, they should slow down and focus on getting acclimated. They should avoid overcommitting themselves until they understand the academic expectations being made of them and they get used to the rhythm and routine of the semester, which is vastly different from the rhythm and routine of the high school semester, for example. When they do add more activities or a heavy schedule of coursework, they should do these things for meaning and to develop particular literacies and skills. They should try to be intentional in their choices. And in this regard, quality should win out over quantity. The third source of anxiety for our students and for our parents is the issue of grades, unexpected grades, which usually means grades other than A's for our students. It's true. Adjustment to college courses can take a little time for first-year students. The expectations are different, the material is different, the rhythm of the semester is different. They're in the classroom far fewer hours than they would be in the classroom in high school. But many of our first-year courses allow for that adjustment by having early exams that give feedback to students, and by building in problem and discussion sections that help students digest the material. A large majority of our students was in the top 10% of their high school class. But WashU is a different playing field, and it takes some time for students to adjust their habits in order to work with different expectations and a different peer group. A rough exam or course grade, particularly in the first year, does not ruin students' trajectory or their opportunity to achieve their career goals. In fact, the average GPA of our students who do get into med school, for example, is 3.4. So students do not have to have a 4.0 to have a successful postgraduate path. We can't say this enough. They don't have to have a 4.0 to be wildly successful in their lives. But of course, most students are bound to get grades that they hoped would have been better. Learning to navigate this issue in productive ways is part of the learning curve of the college experience for both students and their families. There are unhelpful responses to unexpected grades, and there are helpful ones. So I'm going to start with the unhelpful responses to unexpected grades. It's in red, so to kind of give you that marker that that's unhelpful. One unhelpful response is deciding that an unexpected grade automatically means that one is not good at the subject. In fact, most subjects and disciplines ask students to learn new skills and grow abilities in a particular area. And this takes time and effort. We don't want students assuming that one disappointing grade or tough assignment is the final judgment on their abilities or their potential, and then simply giving up. So it's letting them know that it takes some time and that being good at something is a process of development. Another unhelpful response is asking students to study harder or longer, even though that seems a bit counterintuitive. But increasing the time spent studying will probably not bring about a decisive change in their performance, unless, of course, they didn't study at all, in which case studying more probably will help. Rather, students typically find that they need to rethink the way they study and to learn new study skills. A lot of our students, even our very high achieving students, do not have effective study habits. They've been able to get away with being inefficient in high school, but they realize that they need to change those habits now. Being deliberate about study habits can be a game changer for students. By learning effective study habits, students can often either improve their performance or achieve the same performance with less time. And we repeat this advice over and over again. And it's actually good if the advice doesn't just come from their advisors and their faculty, but also from various sources, including you, their families. This is something they need to hear over and over again. Okay, so those are the unhelpful responses. Then there are the helpful responses to unexpected grades. First, it's important to ask students what they can do differently. They themselves may have some insight into why they're not performing as well as they would like, and partnering with them to think through the issue can be very helpful. They're smart and very perceptive people, and they can often analyze this themselves. Second, it's also important to encourage students to use the many resources that are available on campus. Some students think that availing themselves of the resources available to them somehow constitutes an admission of failure. But in fact, from the perspective of faculty and advisors, it demonstrates the student's determination and maturity. So some of these sources include the course instructor. Students often feel embarrassed coming to faculty. They feel either the instructor won't want to help or won't have time to help, or that again, this demonstrates some kind of weakness. But in fact, there is nothing that a professor likes more than to see a struggling student come in for help. We don't judge them for this. Rather, we want our students to do well. And we're impressed by students who take the initiative to learn better or who express real interest in the subject matter. Then there is the Learning Center, which can provide support for particular courses or with study skills in general. There's the Writing Center, which can help students navigate the different kinds of writing assignments required in different courses. And they even help the most polished writers take their writing to the next level. So for example, we refer our PhD students who are writing their dissertations to the Writing Center, even though they've been writing for many, many years, because it can always bring it up to the next level. So this is something that even the best writers should avail themselves of. Then there is our Disability Resources Office for students with learning disorders or ADHD. Some of our students already received accommodations for learning disorders in high school. And if they did, they should go through our process to receive those accommodations again. This is not the time to change the game on this or to take particular strategies away from the student. So it's not an admission of weakness. In fact, this arms them with the tools that they will need to be successful. So make sure that if your student had those accommodations in high school, let's try to get them equipped with them here. Also, some of our students deal with undiagnosed learning disabilities. In fact, it is not uncommon for students to get a diagnosis in their first or second year in college. Almost half of students with accommodations get their diagnoses after high school. So if students or a family suspect that there is a persistent issue, they should definitely consult with disability resources. Then there are advisors. And as many of you already know, WashU places a strong emphasis on academic advising and has put into place a matrix of advisors, which means that each student has a network of people who can help them with both academic and personal matters. The core of our comprehensive advising program is the four-year advisor, who is assigned to the student in the summer before they matriculate. Your students have already interacted with their four-year advisors over the summer, and they'll be meeting again tomorrow and several times over the course of their first year with their advisors. As the title indicates, these four-year advisors accompany the students throughout their college career and meet with them a minimum of once a semester after their first year. They're there to ensure academic continuity over the entire 4 years. Then we have departmental advisors. So when students declare a major or a minor, they add a specialist advisor from those programs. These advisors help with discipline-specific courses and the ins and outs of majors. We also have a robust post-graduate advising structure. So if students are interested in pre-professional, pre-law, pre-grad, or pre-health areas, they receive advisors in those areas as well. Further, there are study abroad advisors. Students planning on engaging in an international experience, whether short-term or longer-term, are advised by staff in the Overseas Programs Office, who advise on the logistics of study abroad. and by study abroad advisors within particular majors or minors who can make sure study abroad works with students' study plans. Faculty also serve as mentors and advisors for the majors and minors, both formally with research projects, with major advising, or with advice on postgraduate study, and informally. Outside of the college office, there are student affairs professionals who support residential life, campus life, student health, etc. And finally, there are also peer advisors available, including residence advisors in the residential halls, WUSAs, who are the students you see running around with t-shirts helping you and your students. They're awesome people, by the way. And peer mentors for particular subjects. Students can thus rely on an entire campus network that is in place to help them negotiate any academic or personal challenge they face. And I think of this matrix as a tightly woven net, and we weave it as tightly as possible so that no student falls through. And that's the way we think about this. In addition to the network of support available to students here at WashU, we recognize that families also play an important role in ensuring the well-being and success of their students. The support of families is critical for the development of students, and we find it very important to partner with families. After all, we have a common interest in helping our students flourish. But the key to this partnership is the role of the student in the venture. For us, the student is the primary agent in the relationship. It is critical that the student be in the driver's seat of their own academic experience and that they own and take responsibility for their educational path. We think students are best supported both by WashU faculty and staff and their parents. However, we don't circumvent the student to work directly with families. We honor the student's agency in their own educational path and make sure that their desires and needs are the center of our focus. Parents are understandably concerned about their students and want to be involved. But this requires that parents work with the student, not for the student. And this is where we want to avoid the phenomenon of helicoptering and over-involvement in students' academic and social lives. We want students to become independent and responsible and to emerge from their 4 years here as capable adults who are fully able to function in society. Not all adults can do that, I know, but that's our goal for our students. Yes, it's important for the health of our society and our uncertain future. So I feel very strongly about this myself. This means that they'll need to learn to navigate challenges themselves. Of course, we will support them in this, but ultimately the student needs to be the one shaping their destiny and owning their own educational experience. And to talk a little bit more about this phenomenon of helicoptering, helicoptering is considered in the research on the experience of college-age adults to be uniformly counterproductive. So even though parents who engage in helicoptering are often supportive and well-intentioned, students who are helicoptered, who have problems solved by their parents and who themselves do not exert agency or control, have increased levels of depression, increased levels of anxiety, decreased satisfaction with life, decreased physical health, and decreased academic performance. And these negative effects occur even though the parental intention is clearly to support rather than harm the student. It's not about the intention, it's really about the outcomes. And one sees negative outcomes from very positive intentions. Of course, it's important for families to support their students. So how do we know when that positive intention to support veers into the negative area of helicopter parenting? The key is to make the distinction between behaviors and actions that support the autonomy of the students and those that indicate over-involvement in or control of students' lives. So what actually constitutes helicoptering and what constitutes autonomy supportive behavior? According to research surveys that determine the phenomenon of helicoptering with college-age students, there is a difference between parental interaction that supports the autonomy and agency of students and interaction that is overly involved or inappropriate. So what I've done, this is a little exercise for us, is I've taken examples of both kinds of interaction from the research surveys. So I'm going to read them aloud here and let you decide whether you can identify which behavior is autonomy supportive and which is helicoptering. So this is your assignment for this class period. Okay, so the first behavior, parents who want to have a say in which major the student chooses. You can think about that one, write down your answer. 2, parents who call professors about low grades or about assignments. 3, parents who want the student to call or text to let them know where they are. 4, parents who encourage the student to make their own decisions and to take responsibility for the choices they've made. 5, parents who monitor whom the student spends time with. 6, parents who encourage the student to keep a budget and manage their own finances. 7, parents who intervene in a problem with a roommate. And 8, parents who encourage the student to communicate with professors. So again, which of these behaviors are helicoptering and which are autonomy supportive? This is where we'll check our own work on this. So all of the helicoptering behaviors, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 are in red. That's to like make you stop and think. The autonomy supportive ones, 4, 6, and 8 are marked in green. That's for go. So you'll notice that the items in green are all about encouraging students. Those behaviors support the student's agency and allow them to solve challenges independently, even if the parent or family member is giving advice, reassurance, and especially moral support. According to the research, such autonomy supporting behavior is correlated with far better outcomes. And what we're trying to do is to empower and enable students to advocate for themselves. Now, this process takes time and it isn't always clear cut, but students do learn to make decisions and deal with the consequence of making those decisions. And you see this actually over the course of the 4 years. The students come in, they're kind of a little raw and unshaped, and by the end, they know what they're doing and they're able to advocate for themselves. And it's truly like a stunning process for those of us who are involved in it. It's so rewarding. And this is really necessary for students to be fully engaged in their own education. At the same time, however, we are not advocating for a kind of sink or swim situation. In fact, as evident in the advising matrix I introduced a few moments ago, we've developed a large team of supportive and very professional partners throughout campus. We believe in providing students with a great deal of advice, some of which they really don't want to hear, but we're going to give it anyway, information and connections, and helping them to develop skills so that they can flourish. Our approach to advising involves supporting the students' autonomy and enabling them to make positive, informed, intentional decisions. We really encourage them to step up and own their education. Just to be clear, though, by saying we want to avoid helicoptering, I'm not saying that we do not want to hear from parents. In fact, there are appropriate times for parents to make contact with us. So, under what circumstances should a family member be involved? When should they contact us? So sometimes it will be useful for us to hear from you if your student is stressed or struggling and you don't know what to do to help them, or whom they should talk to, or if you wonder whether what your student is going through is even normal. We generally don't advise that parents bypass students to talk to us, except when there is something going on in a student's life that they probably aren't going to tell us about. So a family situation, health challenges, or other personal situations. In such instances, you might want to give us the heads up so that we can check in with the student a bit more frequently. We support students advocating for themselves, but if they have attempted to advocate themselves through conventional channels, through a faculty member or an advisor about a concern, and it's not going anywhere, and they won't reach out to the college office, then it's preferable, then you may want to contact us. It's always preferable for the student to talk to us directly. So that's important to say. It's really preferable for us to hear from and to advise the student directly. So please encourage them to talk to us. But sometimes we have stubborn students and they don't want to do that. So if that's happening, you can contact us and we can strategize together about how to help the student move forward. Conversely, under what circumstances should a family member not be involved? And so we're going back to the red here. There are definitely less appropriate or productive reasons to call us. So a parent should not contact us when it's a question of information. So for example, how many credits will transfer from a summer program, when deadlines to add and drop courses are, those sort of informational nuggets. Students need to learn how to handle these things and find out information and policies for themselves. That's really part of them being an agent in their own education. Further, a parent shouldn't ask us to tell students what they need to do. When we get these kinds of requests, the parents often don't want the student to know that the parent reached out to us. That puts us in a little bit of a bind if we're supposed to check in with the student without acknowledging to the student that the parent contacted us about an issue. That just makes it very difficult. Also, a parent shouldn't reach out to us for information that a student won't give them. This is where we follow the regulations of the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, and you've probably heard a lot about FERPA. FERPA stipulates that anything about a student's academic performance is private to that student. We can't talk to families about a student's academic record or other information without the student's consent, and there's a process for giving that consent. Unless there's a significant issue, for example, when a student's status is in jeopardy. So if you're interested in talking about a student's academic performance, we encourage you to speak to the student directly or to sit down with us and the student together, and we can talk about that. In general, we expect that students will take the initiative to disclose and discuss academic goals and progress with their parents and families. We know that many of them, or some of them, let's say, don't do this, but that is our encouragement, and we encourage that in our advising as well. Finally, and this is a little bit funny, a parent sometimes contacts us to make sure a child wakes up or gets to class on time. It happens. This also isn't appropriate for the college, as our purview is strictly the academic side of the student's college experience. We don't keep tabs on our students outside of class. Even though I know you wish we would, we're not going to do it. The staff of Residential Life, and you've met with them, I hope, and especially your residential college hall advisors and the directors of the residential colleges. They can be quite helpful with your questions, and they can let you know how your student is functioning outside the academic arena. But just know that they are also not going to make sure that your student wakes up and gets to class on time. So they're not going to do that either. That's up to the student and to Siri or whatever alarm they put into place. Or you can call them if you want. That's up to you. Okay, so I want to conclude my presentation by turning from your communications with us to your students' communications with you. One thing you might be on the lookout for in the next weeks and months as your student starts to navigate the unknown waters of the new semester is the occasional text or phone call in which the student is panicking or venting about a particular situation. That situation could be a difficult assignment, an unexpected grade, the student's workload, an upcoming test, problems with a roommate, or even just a little homesickness. That happens as well. So I'd like you to be prepared for this panicky phone call, which typically sets off a kind of inevitable chain reaction that consists of the following stages. And we've gotten to where we identify these now. So 1, a bad thing of unknown magnitude happens. 2, the student becomes distressed. 3, the student calls or texts you about their distress, which inevitably upsets or worries you. 4, 5 minutes after calling or texting, the student goes out for late night pizza with a sweet mate, and everything's fine. They've gotten over the issue and they're feeling better. 5, the student comes back to the dorm, works on their paper, watches a little Netflix, and goes into a deep and restful sleep. 6, you become distressed and you lie awake. Imagine your child still in despair. All the while, your student sleeps peacefully, blissfully unaware of your suffering. This is this is basically parenting in a nutshell, right? This scenario shows that students don't always close the loop on their own calls of distress. And we want them to learn that they need to be mindful of what they ask of their families. We want them also to be responsible and considerate in their dealings with you. So tomorrow, I'm going to lay out this very scenario to them, word for word. And I'm going to remind them that they need to reach out to you again when they feel better, that it's cruel to leave you hanging. And that's part of that empathy thing that we want them to develop, right? This is our way of supporting you in your support of our students. This is that partnership that I've been talking about. So that sort of ends what I wanted to present to you. I'm going to open it up for questions now. I'm going to answer the questions in conjunction with my colleague, Associate Dean Jennifer Romney, who has been doing this advising thing a lot longer than I have. But in the meantime, I also want to, give you my contact information so that you can contact me at any time for appropriate reasons, of course. It's Vistine-McLaughlin@worcester.edu. The phone number is 314-935-7747. Or if you have general questions and don't want to contact me, you can email college@worcester.edu and we'll be happy to get back with you. So let's dig into some questions for you. And you can raise your hand. We've got a microphone here. I'm sure people have questions. Yeah, thank you.
What happens if our students take a class that just doesn't seem to go for them? Is there a certain amount of time that they have that they can switch classes?
Yes, so we have what is called the add drop period. That's generally the first 2 weeks of the semester. In fact, it goes until Friday at 10 9 p.m. Thank you. See that she is my encyclopedia here. Friday at 9 p.m. of the second week of the semester. So they have that time to add, drop, switch classes. After that, they're fully enrolled in the class, but they also have a period in which they can withdraw from a course. And it does show on their transcript that they withdrew from it, but they're not on the hook for the grade. And that deadline is in November. They can also switch back and forth, and we'll be talking to them about this, from taking a course pass-fail. So it just shows if they passed or failed. If they feel a little unsure about their grade, that's not a bad thing to do, and to take it for a graded option. So there are these sort of, I see them as little pressure valves to let off the steam that a student that's building up in the student.
And oh, good, it's on. And I just wanted to mention, I'm an Americanist literature. And so I like to say that a W that is on the transcript for withdraw is not a scarlet W, right? It's a little American literature joke. It's not a scarlet W. It's very often the absolutely right thing to do if a student is deep into the semester and for whatever reason, whether that be because they've overcommitted themselves or because they just decide, you know what, this class is really, I'm spending way too much time. I'm not enjoying it. I want to be able to focus my energies on other things. Oftentimes that's absolutely the right decision. And that's something that their four-year advisor can really help them sort of think through and process through. And we're happy to do that.
That's right. That's the role of the four-year advisor. And I'm here to say I have W's on my transcript, and here I am. So, you know, they build up in their minds that this is like that they cannot, if they don't meet their absolute ideal performance, that everything else is a disaster. And these pressure valves are there to show that it's not a disaster. This is to allow them to actually regroup and be successful in the courses that they're still enrolled in.
Thank you so much, Professor. I just wanted to know if a student is auditing courses, can they retake the course for a graded option?
If they're auditing courses, I'm sorry, and what was the second part of the question?
Can they retake the course in another semester for a graded option?
Yeah, yes. Auditing courses is it's not a commitment to performing in a class. So a student could audit a course and then take a course the following semester. That's fully.
Yeah, no, that's correct. I think it's less commonly done than you might think. I think it's relatively rare for a student to audit a course. An audit is really a formal way of sitting in on the class. And so they don't earn credits for audited courses. Yes. So I've had students audit courses mostly when, for example, I had a student who was working on a senior thesis, a very theoretical thesis, and she wanted to audit a class that was kind of for graduate students with her thesis advisor. That was a perfect time to take an audit.
Yes. And I mean, what we find too is that if students audit courses, they may start with the intention of fully being engaged, but then their other courses pull at them. So, you know, they're welcome to do that. But as Dean Romney says, we don't see it that often. There's a question.
Hello. Hi, back here.
Can you raise your hand? I'm looking, oh, way back there. Thank you.
So not helicoptering, how do you encourage the students to really open their minds to look at other majors or other opportunities of study to ensure that they fully use all the resources here at the school?
Yes, so that is really what we do in our four-year advising with students. We want them, I mean, first of all, we ask them to take a variety of courses in different areas as part of our IQ curriculum. So they will be engaged with subject areas with which they may have very little experience or hadn't even thought about. But we often a student comes in with a little bit of blinders, and we try to sort of remove, at least open up those blinders a little bit and really talk about what the liberal arts education is about. It is, as I pointed out at one point, employers are not necessarily looking for somebody with a psychology major or with a political science major or with a chemistry major. They're looking for those larger liberal arts skills and literacies that they get throughout their education. And that's one thing that we are committed to developing with them, is a sense of what they are learning and getting in all of their courses, so that they can actually see a path forward with different kinds of majors that they hadn't thought about before. And so really that we encourage students. Now, we also have students who are like, they enter, this is what they're going to do, and 4 years later, they exit and they did exactly what they entered with the intentions they entered, and that's fine too. Those students know what they want to do, and we're not trying to pull them off their path. We're trying to help them find that kind of broad and diverse path that will give them options for the future.
Yes. I am here.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. So far, we had been receiving communications from the university through family ties, billing department. What else should we expect from moving forward?
Yes, so from the college, I'm not sure exactly what we send. I mean, we do send out particular markers about the student experience, but not about the individual student. You will not hear from us about your individual student unless there's, of course, a crisis of some sort. Jennifer, do you have a little bit better?
We have point people, and I'm gesturing towards a couple of my colleagues standing over here in the doorway. We do have point people for the first year academic experience who are here, who will send correspondence, each semester? The first semester, each semester. Again, not specific, but more like, here are the general things that oftentimes first semester students might be experiencing or thinking about, to give you little cues, right, of how it is that you might ask them questions so that you can hear what it is that they're thinking about and help making sure that they're asking the right questions themselves.
Yes, and reinforcing the kinds of messaging that we're giving to them about how they're thinking about their path of study. As again, we want it to be a partnership, so we're bringing you into that by kind of giving insight into how we're interacting with your students.
Hey, thanks for the information. The one question is, maybe different college and different state, the policy may be different. Just wondering, what is the policy or guideline for washout over drug use? Especially during the distress, some kind of hard control environment. Any policy or regulation or guidance on this?
I didn't get all of that, but it was a policy on
The drug usage.
dropping classes,
Drug usage.
the drop date.
Drug usage.
I'm sorry. The acoustics. up
Sorry,
here.
he's saying drug usage.
Oh, drug usage. That's very different. So. And I assume you mean illegal drugs, illegal substances. So I mean, the academic, we have no academic policies in the College of Arts and Sciences specifically that refer to drug usage. That is part of our student conduct code, which is is really administered by our student affairs team. But and there is an entire process for, if a student is discovered to be taking illegal substances, how that is investigated and adjudicated. That all plays out within the scope of our student conduct code, which also governs academic matters as well, such as academic integrity. But we have no academic policies that specifically pertain to drug use. Personally, we do not encourage it. I would say that if we find a student, and we may, as advisors, I wouldn't say that this is common. It's probably fairly rare. I'm looking at my very experienced advisors here. We may suspect that a student has a drug or alcohol problem, and we may work with our student affairs staff to try to get help for the student. I mean, when we discover that there are problems impacting students outside of their academic experience, outside the classroom, We work with, for example, an office called WashU Cares, which has case managers to help identify problems and get help for students. So that would be our, the way that we would deal with it is refer this to our colleagues who are professionals in student health and other areas in student affairs.
Thank you for the great presentation and particularly nice tips on the helicoptering. This question is about internship opportunities for summer. What is WashU doing in providing resources for all the students? How do WashU currently have enough resources available to provide internship for all the students, or when do parents need to get involved in finding opportunities outside the WashU resources?
Yeah, so opportunities for internships, and this is becoming, I would say, a major goal of WashU. Our chancellor has identified this as an important goal. And most of the, I would say most of the work to help students identify internships happens with the Career Center, who have staff that really help students identify the areas in which they're looking for internships. They have connections with employers and other institutions, but we in the college also advise students on how their internships fit in with their course of study. We can give credit for particular internships. So we also play a role in that internship experience. And we ourselves are building out the capacity to advise on internships as well, because we understand it's an important aspect of the student's college experience.
Hi. My question is about overcommitment point you made. So is managing that completely students' responsibility? Because in many cases, they might not even realize that they're overcommitting by whatever course load and extracurriculars that they are signing up for. So is there some proactive measure that raises a red flag in students' minds saying, this is too much? Or is it when they figure it out that no, actually they kind of messed it up?
Well, so it is the responsibility of the four-year advisor to really engage with the student about overcommitment in terms of course load, the kinds of course, the mix of courses they're taking. So this is something that we actually quite often engage with students, especially our very ambitious students who want to take way more courses than we think they should be taking. So that happens with us. We also, as four-year advisors, interact with, we are interested in knowing what they're doing outside the classroom in terms of their extracurriculars, but they have to inform us about that and we can give them guidance. There is no one person sort of looking at the top with the student and looking at both halves of those pieces comprehensively. I would say this is where parents come in and families come in most strongly, is to say, okay, so you've registered for 17 units this semester and you want to be vice president of your organization, and you want to volunteer at the zoo, and you kind of have to say, how do you think that's going to happen? And that, again, that would be something that if you are worried about, that you can strategize with us on, because we can also point out to the student, look, you are on track to graduate anyway. You don't need to take 18 units this semester. You are on track to graduate. Some of those courses are coming around again. These two courses you want to put your focus on because those are going to be quite rigorous. So make sure that the other aspects of your schedule are more manageable. That's our job to help with that.
And I think that's one of the real benefits of the four-year advising system, that you have this relationship with your students, or we have this relationship with your students that we've already started to forge, right? When we first met with them over Zoom as they were leading up to registration for this semester, and being able to sort of check in and to remind them of how they felt, right, when they had maybe overcommitted themselves in previous semesters. So I'm thinking right now of a student of mine who was a very accomplished violist and very keen to be involved in various ensembles, to the extent that she enrolled in 3 separate ensembles her first semester. And she was when she wasn't studying, she was riding her bike back and forth to the 560 building. I'm sorry, yes, 560 building to various lessons and practices. And we just talked about how you can still be a committed violist with one ensemble, right? And we were able to talk about that going into then her next semester and her next year.
Yes, first, thank you so much. This has been very useful. My question is about dual majors, potentially and specifically bridging across a different college. Where do students go to find out like the prerequisites, like if they're entertaining, trying to decide whether they want to pursue a dual major, say in business or something, you know, where do they go to just figure out what the requirements would be so to assist them in figuring out whether they want to do
You
that or
probably
not?
want to.
I'm actually going to do a presentation on that on Wednesday. I believe it's at noon. We're going to be in a building called Siegel, but it will be on their orientation schedule. And we'll talk about what we call them collectively combined studies opportunities. So you can encourage your student to come to that.
Yeah, and for your advisors, we'll also know where to point students in particular directions. If it's a major or a minor within arts and sciences, they'll know a lot about that major and minor. They can point them to the right person in the department. And then if it's outside, there are formal pathways for this to happen. So we'll definitely connect the student. This is not uncommon at all.
So quick question. So all the students here are academically very gifted. What are you doing to encourage social engagement so they're not locked in their rooms or in the library all the time? How are you getting them more interconnected to the student body, especially this first week, their freshman year?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that really, most of that is taken care of by our student affairs staff. And they're really trying to develop those social connections between students, help them find their community right away, or communities, because students are generally moving in and out of several different social communities. But I would say that that social aspect is built into many of our first year programs. So we have courses and programs that are developed particularly for or only for first year students. Some of these are ampersand programs. They span more than one semester and they have some kind of experiential learning component. And the idea is that they're doing academics in the classroom, but they're also building connections with each other and with the faculty. And often that's social. So I have an ampersand program that I'm doing this year with a colleague. It's a year-long program on the history, memory, and representation of the Holocaust. We'll have a pizza party in October to talk to our students right away. We'll have various engagements throughout the semester. So those are built in also in the academic side of things, but it's definitely on the student affairs. I kind of point in that direction to the South 40. Like I lived on the South 40 as a faculty fellow for 3 years amongst students. That was quite an experience. And I can tell you that it's incredible, the machine that they have there for students. It's such a well-oiled, thought out, comprehensive environment for your students. So they will not be in the library. In fact, I don't know many students who spend all their time in the library. The only ones I know who do that are biomedical engineering students, and they're in the engineering school. So there are those opportunities. I think often, in fact, it's our goal from the academic side is to bring them back from the South 40 for particular academic programs in the evenings, because there are so many ways to engage over there.
Good morning, buenos dias. As I'm retiring from helicoptering, I'd like to know if you can tell me what is the ratio at the College of Arts and Sciences for advisors to students? What are we expecting?
The ratio of advisors to students,
Like, is that like 200 to 1?
Oh,
I see, advising
800.
load.
Yes,
So
thank you.
it depends on the advisor and it depends on what their various other roles or additional roles they might have in the college or in the university. So I'd have about 20 students a year who are mine. And I do a lot of policies and curriculum development. And so I think that more of my colleagues who are full-time advisors will have more like 35 to 40 per year. We have faculty who are also four-year advisors in addition to being faculty advisors. They have full teaching loads, so they might take between 5 and 7 students a year. So it really does vary depending on what their additional responsibilities might be.
That's right. I take on 5 students per year. So it's just sort of depending on, and we do have full-time academic advisors who do only advising and then people who are supervising them. So it just depends. But I think that's our cap is what we're looking at is about 45 per year is the absolute cap. Yeah. And those are full-time advisors.
First of all, thank you. This weekend has been really reassuring. It's our firstborn and first child going to far away from home. So it's been a great events here. So thank you very much. So we were talking about empowering kids, and I hear again and again in all sessions about advisors and advisors. What is the science behind matching a student to an advisor? And does a student gets a chance to interview an advisor to see if that advisor, matches the cultural, or like my daughter says, her thought of where she wants to be. So we did not hear much about if she had a choice of advisor. So could you answer that? What is the science behind it, and how do you match students to advisor? And do they have a chance to consider if they have choice of picking an advisor that they believe would work well with them?
So I'll jump in, but our experts are over here. It is a complex, and I'll just say labor-intensive algorithm. We match students with advisors in a variety, with many, to be honest, many different and sometimes competing elements in mind. So for example, I work with students who are in a particular ampersand program on Shakespeare and theater. And so every student who is in that program, by virtue of the fact that they signed up to be in that program, is my advisee. I also, you might notice a pattern here, I'm devoted to the dance department. And so I ask my colleagues if any students indicate, when students indicate an interest in dance on their applications, I ask that they be assigned to me so that I can sort of support them with that and also live vicariously through my students. We have various faculty, I was just thinking who, so I'm thinking in particular of a professor in the art history department who studies East Asian art. And so her advisees are also those who have indicated particular interests, at least preliminary interests, right, in art history and or East Asian studies to go ahead and sort of help foster that connection immediately. So it's a bunch of different elements and go into the calculus.
I think we are a little over time, but we probably have time for one more question, or if anyone's. Okay, got one more question here.
Thank you very much for the presentations. It has been very great. I just wanted to know the frequency of interaction between the student and the advisors.
The frequency of interaction?
Yeah.
So, and again, my advising experts over here can talk a little bit more in depth with you about that. But in the first year, we meet with the student one-on-one before in the summer before they start. We'll meet with them in the fall semester, and we'll meet with them in the spring semester. But we also have these small group advising sessions with multiple advisees, and that's five the first year and an additional one the sophomore year. After that, we require that our students meet with us once a semester to talk about their plans for the following semester. But if a student wants to meet with their advisor beyond that, and that often happens, we're ready to meet with them. So a student can request to meet with an advisor at any time. We require it every semester that they're enrolled, and then also through these first year advising meetings.
And all of us have sort of open walk-in hours or drop-in hours during the week. And then I think every single one of us at the bottom of in our signature blocks at the bottom of our email has the link to our own individual calendars, and students are welcome to come and sign up for appointment anytime they want to.
And I should also say that students also have to meet with their major advisors. So once they're a junior, they may be meeting with 3 people, their 4-year advisor and their advisor for perhaps 2 majors. There is quite a frequency of meetings.
Okay, I think we've got one more, and then this will be our final question.
Thank you very much for everything. I just have a quick question. So if you have a child that is not 18, how do you go about, because like signing the forms for medical release? And she said, I don't have to do that because you're 17. But when I called, they said, oh no, we can't talk to you. So what do I do? Please advise me.
Yeah, the age of 17, we do have a fair number of students who enter at age 17, and that changes things just a little bit. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and if you want to, we can talk about that and get a form. Yeah.
Okay, thank you also very much. Good luck to you as you finish off your time here at WashU. We hope to see you at Parent and Family Weekend this fall. So thank you.